Greetings and welcome to Trafotin. Firefox is one of the longest living browsers that's still with us today. Good riddance, Internet Explorer, and is arguably the most customizable browser when it comes to protecting your privacy. I have made lots of videos about Firefox, but so much has changed in the last year with Firefox, and I want to take a step back and try to review some of the basics, update my configuration files, and explain why you should consider using Firefox as your web browser. The undisputed point with Firefox is that Mozilla, the parent organization behind Firefox, is almost always at odds with the current web browser at the time. Before Firefox, Firefox was Netscape, and Netscape fought tooth and nail against the Internet Explorer monopoly before being forcibly shut down by Microsoft. And today, Firefox is one of the only competing web engines against the Chromium monopoly. No, Safari, you don't count if you force iPhone users to use you. Firefox has also become the heart of many popular open source projects. Things like Thunderbird, the email client, the Tor browser for people who want to view things on the dark web, WebAssembly, and NSS, and all sorts of things that have been powered by Mozilla over the years. And Mozilla is also one of the largest contributors to lots of open source projects, like, say, the Linux operating system. It's easier to change your default search engine in Firefox and access multiple search engines at once, out of the box with no modification. It's easier to change your default web browser on Windows 11 because of registry hacks Mozilla dug up. Firefox also has, in my opinion, one of the most robust, if not the best, screen shooting utilities on a web browser, full stop. Full page screenshots, and it captures individual elements. Their web dev tools also have a built-in color picker, and also a really great and convenient way to change your user agent and experiment with different screen resolutions if you're a web developer. Mozilla has also been more forgiving in the regards of the dreaded C word. And the C word that blocks certain video or image things on websites. That's right, I'm talking about containers that compartmentalize multiple logins and data. You want to stay logged into your work and personal Google account at the same time? Firefox containers have you covered. Mozilla has been much more conservative about the transition from Manifest v2 to the soon-to-be replaced extension framework of Manifest v3. And to be fair, Manifest v3 is 100% a security win. It means browser extensions will be much more limited of what they can do. And no, I am not trusting myself or any of you to run dumb tamper monkey scripts in your browser. This also comes at the drawback of add-ons that remove things from websites. A great example being the most popular downloaded extension that starts with the letter U. They're not as good as they could be if they are on something other than Firefox, because they're restricted by Manifest v3 to have rules less than 500,000 lines, which is way too low for most common extensions that you might install. Unfortunately for most people fall victim to the tyranny of the default, and Firefox has been slowly declining over the years, despite having all of these awesome things. Firefox has no mobile market share. By default, phone users are presented with Chrome on Android or Safari on iPhone. And even if you install Firefox on, let's say, your iPhone or your Android phone, it's a crippled web browser, and it's no better than you using Chrome or Safari. It's also more insecure, but that's a topic for another day. The lack of browser competition among giants is harmful to users in the long run, and you'll see this by this hegemony being perpetuated by companies like Microsoft, packaging in Chromium into Windows so they can use it in Microsoft Edge. And this also doesn't account for the fact that Firefox's market share is further weakened by cheap imitators. Now, I'm sure this isn't as bad as the cheap copies of Chrome or forks of Chromium, but I would advise that you stay away from most forks of Firefox. A lot of them struggle to receive updates in a timely manner, so if you know what's good for you, stay away from them. So let's say you're sold on the idea of Firefox, and you want to have a browser that makes a statement against the magnative monopolies that control the web browser ecosystem. So you're going to go to mozilla.org/Firefox and you're going to click the download button and install it, right? Well, the truth is it's actually more complicated than that. If you're a Mac user, you'd probably be just fine doing that, or using something like the Package Manager Homebrew. And if you're on Linux, you can go straight to your software store and download it if you don't have it already, because it's the default in most Linux distributions. But if you're on Windows, special thing to note for Windows users, because if you do that download on Windows, they give you a unique installer with a unique identifier that's planted within the installer, so they know that you have downloaded it. Okay, well, they don't know you specifically, but you don't want them collecting this unwanted information about you. They're just taking a dump on the Windows users. And the important thing to know is that not only this, Windows users need to take a lot of extra steps in order to get Firefox in a proper private manner. So the first thing is you can download Firefox from the Microsoft Store, right? I mean, obviously it's in the Microsoft Store, so I can download it, right? Wrong! The reality is when you download Firefox from the Microsoft Store, Firefox from the Microsoft Store is actually crippled. Because on Windows 11 intentionally makes it difficult for you to set browsers as your default browser. When you download Firefox from the Microsoft Store, you're downloading Firefox and it won't be able to be set as your default web browser. Now, why is that? The reason is because Microsoft hates your freedom, plain and simple. The primary benefit of using the Microsoft Store, after all, is to get UWA apps, so you're probably better off avoiding the Microsoft Store, at least directly. Secondly, if you're on Windows, Mozilla installs a scheduled task to constantly check if Firefox is your default web browser at least once a day. Mozilla, it's none of your beeswax who I use as my default web browser, so I'm gonna go into Task Scheduler, I'm gonna go to the Mozilla folder and delete everything inside. I think I'll be just fine. So now we have Firefox, and naturally the first thing you think is this is a tech channel, you're gonna tell us how to configure it, right? Well, hold your horses there, sport. We're going to first configure profiles before we start touching any of the individual settings. While not as easy to use or as forward-facing as it is on Chromium-based browsers, Firefox supports profiles, which are completely different identities and configurations of Firefox. And the reason why I'm telling you guys to set this up now is partially to set up for future videos, but also so that while you have this set up, you can configure Firefox in multiple different ways, so if a website doesn't work on one profile, you can always swap to another profile and get it to work. This way, we can ensure that everything is all set up on just have one browser rather than having multiple web browsers. First, you might want to consider creating a desktop shortcut for Firefox or a script to help you run this, and I'll try to explain how this works here. So if you have a desktop icon for Firefox, if you're on Windows, you can actually go and make a copy of that and add an argument at the end, like -p, and this would open the profile selector of Firefox by default. Now this changes a little bit based on operating system. For example, on Mac, what you need to do is you need to go to the Firefox binary directly within the Firefox.app bundle. And then you can make a symbolic link and link that to your desktop. If you're on Linux, you probably have Firefox installed by default on your system anyway. But an important thing to consider is you might not want to use the native package of Firefox, and you're going to want to probably stick with the Snap and Flatpak packages. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about what that actually means, but what it translates to is that you're using a sandbox package with more finely tuned permissions, and it's a package that is maintained by Mozilla's developers rather than your distribution's developers. Because when you use a package from your distribution, what's happening is you're using a package which not only gets touched by Mozilla's developers, it gets touched again by your distribution's developers on top of it. And you can avoid this by using a containerized or sandboxed application. Now, if you're on Ubuntu, you probably don't have to do anything because Firefox is installed as a snap package by default. But if you're on another distribution, you're going to want to consider using the Flatpak instead. And the command that you use based on snap or Flatpak is different depending on which one you chose. And the idea is this. As long as you know these commands, depending on which operating system you have, every time you launch Firefox, you'll be presented with the profile menu, and you can choose which profile you want to do for whichever browsing task you want to do. And the first profile you'll create is called the default-release, but you can rename this or make it something different along the way if you change your mind. Now you think, well, we've created a profile manager shortcut and we've installed Firefox, so we're going to configure it now, right? Not quite yet. I know out of the box, Firefox isn't all that great. The search engine is a little bit invasive. It has a lot of goofy sponsored links if you live in Freedom Land. Pocket is lurking at the top of the corner. Mozilla collects ridiculous amounts of telemetry about you, which they never cite as helpful or in any form or fashion. But rather than fix all of that right now, and I know I might get some hate for this, there's an argument to be made that you shouldn't configure Firefox at all. Configuring Firefox in extreme ways can cause websites to be more suspicious of you, or websites will just break down altogether and then you can't use the website at all. And you must be doing something wrong if you are messing around in the about:config, writing custom JS files, or unchecking a box in the settings menu. Duh! Keeping a stock configuration of Firefox with no modification whatsoever is actually great when you need a browser when your anonymity isn't as important. Services like banks, or let's say you work from home, or you do have a home business, are really good examples of this. And you can get on your high horse and say to me that you are doing your due duty by configuring Firefox. But in certain scenarios, if it would involve you getting locked out of your bank, or you need to access, I don't know, work functions, it's not worth the hassle when these services are probably given your real name by your employer anyway, with the internet plan that's paid for in your name, which is located at the house you paid for in your name, so it's probably not even that big of a deal. While you have this in your mind, we're going to go through how to configure Firefox, like which one of these checkboxes actually matter, and how can we change the way Firefox is configured. I'll be returning to that in a future video, but in the meantime, keep Firefox there, and while you use it, you can use it with the peace of mind knowing that you're using a web browser which doesn't support the 80% monopoly of the other web browsers. Alright? So why don't you go use Firefox and go to my YouTube channel or my Odyssey and click the like button. If you click the like button, I will get a giant fox to swallow the globe, just like you see in Mozilla's logo. Bet you didn't notice that one, right? Also, why don't you consider sending me an email or a message on Mastodon? If you send me a message, you can guarantee that it's going to generate around 4 grams of CO2 to ruin the climate further. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week.